Did you know that losing 80 pounds can be done without any crazy diets or extreme workouts? Here's exactly how I'd coach someone to drop from 250 plus pounds down to the 170s, hundreds, and 80s, step by step. Okay, so first off is going to be your exercise. So, number one is going to be weightlifting. Now, I'm going to have a few points about each one of these points. So, the first one is all about your exercise, weightlifting. You got to be lifting weights. You don't I mean, it's not absolutely essential at first, especially, but in the end, you're going to be losing a lot of muscle mass if you're not losing weight. And you've probably have heard of a lot of people. You've probably heard a story before of someone dropping a significant amount of weight. Look at them now; they probably have gained it all back. Um, Typically, if a person drops a significant amount of weight, they are going to be reducing their BMR, their basal metabolic rate, or the amount of calories that they burn just simply existing if they're losing their muscle mass along the way. Now, your BMR drops no matter what whenever you lose body fat, just because you're simply not carrying around all of that weight anymore. But it's really going to cut into your BMR and your metabolism essentially by the end, especially you're going to have to continue to eat like a bird, or you're going to have to continue to, suffer, whichever one, to eat such small amounts of food in order to keep that weight off. If you return to any of your old habits, you're going to be, gaining that weight back. But by weightlifting, you are keeping your lean muscle mass, and you're keeping the muscle mass is by far the most metabolic tissue in your body. It is burning the most calories of any tissue in your body. It's actually quite inefficient. If we were to, starve, if we were to lose out on food supply or something, the first people that would die would probably be all the bodybuilders because they have too much muscle. It's a very inefficient um, tissue, and so that is going to actually cost them energy. But in today's world, where we have an abundance of food, at least in the West and developed countries around the world, that's not a problem to get access to food. So we want to be burning as many calories as possible. It makes dieting a lot easier whenever you're able to eat 2,500 calories and maintain weight instead of having to eat 1,200 calories in order to maintain weight. And that swing in calories with enough muscle is totally possible. So that is something that's very important. And the second part of of exercise is going to be cardio. And I'm specifically going to talk about the treadmill and the Stairmaster. So one of the major mistakes that I see people make is that they do a form of cardio that is a challenge, and then as it gets easier, they don't increase their capacity to do that cardio. So they don't increase the difficulty of the cardio. So for instance, on the treadmill, let's say that a person is walking at 3 miles an hour at a 2% incline, or a lot of times I'll see them walking into 0% incline, which is fine to start, especially. As that gets easier and they get better at that, they'll do it for 30 minutes, and they do it for 30 minutes 3 times a week forever. I guess that's kind of in their head. They're going to do that until they lose all the weight. But it won't take long for that to get pretty easy. And so instead of 30 minutes, 3 miles an hour at a 0% incline, you might want to do a 2% incline without holding onto the handrails. If you're holding onto the handrails for dear life, you're actually, reducing that incline. You're walking with the treadmill because you're hanging on. It's hard on your grip, but it's certainly not as hard. I mean, if you want proof of that, just let go, and it'll be hard to keep up with a steep incline. But if you walk at a 2% incline and that starts to get easy, then a 4% incline, and that starts to get easy, and then a 5, and then a 6, and so on and so forth, all the way up to usually treadmills max out at 15. If you're walking, hypothetically, let's just say you used to walk at a 0% incline and now you're walking at a 12% incline, you're going to be burning in the same amount of time. So no additional time commitment. You're going to be burning far more calories. Now, is it going to be harder? Yes, but it's not going to be, since your fitness has increased, it's not going to be like out of reach. Whereas before, if you walked a 0% incline, it might have been out of reach. You wouldn't have been able to keep up with 12%. And now that you can, you are going to be, for free burning, meaning not giving any more time, and not giving too much terribly more effort. You're going to be burning a lot more calories. So that is the points of exercise that I would make if I was coaching a person to lose a significant amount of weight. Would be, I want you weightlifting 2 to 3 times a week. I want you to do your cardio, 3 to 5 times a week, ideally for anywhere from 30 minutes up to an hour, and then always be increasing that difficulty. Now, on like a bike or an elliptical, you can increase the difficulty. Let's say you get used to doing a level 8, and then you move to a level 9, then a 10, then eventually on a level 20 or something. It's hard to tell if you're accidentally not just moving slower, so your RPMs would accidentally drop and kind of negate some of that extra calorie burn. So with the treadmill and the Stairmaster, although the Stairmaster has one incline, as you go faster, you're forced to match that incline. The treadmill and the Stairmaster, they keep moving. So if you can keep up with it, you're not going to accidentally be walking slower. You set the speed and it stays at that speed. Whereas on an elliptical or bike or rowing machine or whatever, as you get more fit and as you pull harder on the rowing machine or as you push harder on the bike, you might be moving slower and therefore kind of negating some of those calories. So those are my two favorite pieces of cardio equipment. You could also just walk outside, but it's not going to give you a consistent, uphill, so it's not as effective. But that's what I would have you doing is 3 to 5 times a week of, we'll just say 45 minutes of cardio. You can build up to that, and then 2 to 3 times a week of total body weightlifting, hitting every major muscle group for at least 3 sets. That is the exercise component. Now let's move on to the diet component. So first, I would say the most important aspect of your diet, so this is, section number 2, is going to be food logging. And so now bear with me if you're like, I do not want to log my food. There is like things you can do. You don't have to food log forever. That's number one. Number two, as you get better at this, I promise you're going to get faster and faster and faster. I spend probably about 10 minutes a day logging my food. It's not a huge commitment whatsoever. Sometimes I'll bring up my, whenever I'm one-on-one with the client, I'll actually show them if I'm towards the end of the day, how much time I spent logging my food. Before dinner, it'll be 6 minutes or something. So I imagine with dinner, 10 minutes tops is what I spend logging my food. So you get a lot better at it. Another thing that I like to, which I actually forgot to write in here, so I'll bring it up here, is food logging allows you to eat anything you want as long as you craft the recipe and have it, and you can log it. So if you're craving pizza, you can look up or you can come up with a pizza recipe. I can, if you're interested, I can do a video entirely on how to make your own recipes. It's very easy once you understand the principles of it. But if you're craving chili, you don't have to go buy chili. You could make it and then understand the calories that are going into the buy. You don't have to guess. So a lot of people, whenever they think about food logging, they envision, or I don't know, where this exactly comes from, but I guess it's just that recipes seem too complicated. So they envision I have to eat a protein on my plate, a protein, a vegetable, and a carb. And so for the rest of their life, they're going to be eating chicken breast and rice and broccoli, or a steak and cauliflower and whatever, fill in the blank, potato. So that is certainly not it. Around in our house, around here, we eat a lot of pastas. I just make them more like protein type pastas, just basically with a lot of extra protein in it. But we also eat, soups and sandwiches and all kinds of stuff that are delicious because, I make it in a panini maker, which doesn't add calories, but for some reason adds some sort of texture, or I'll add it, to an air fryer so that now the chicken tastes more like a chicken nugget or something. I have an awesome free resource for you that is called the 30-Day Shape Up Challenge. It's 30 days of 4 habits that I run my clients through that is going to help you get a great start to your fat loss journey. And there's a bonus 5th habit in case you fall off the wagon at all. All my clients love it and it's free. So just scan this QR code here or click the link in the description and I'll send that straight to your email. And there's all kinds of hacks to this that, I can get into more in the future. But food logging is going to be your best friend. It helps you really control your calories. And by the end, and hopefully I'll remember to actually, here, let me get a pen. Hopefully I'll remember to talk about this at the end. But I consider all of these, and I'll actually draw it out, as dials that you can control. There's sometimes 3, sometimes 4 in my analogy. We'll see what it ends up breaking out to be. But if you can dial in the calories and dial up the steps, and we're going to talk about steps and stuff, you can once you have control of all of these dials, you don't feel lost anymore. If you're still with me at this point in the video, you might relate to feeling like it's luck. It's either luck that I stuck to my diet, luck that I stuck to my program, and I feel out of control. So if I fail on this program, I'm going to gain all the weight back, and that's going to be it. And it's out of your control. But whenever you start controlling all these aspects we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you in this video how to control them, I'm telling you, you feel so confident about your ability to progress in your weight loss. So this is, I think, really going to help you. So we already talked about exercise, talking about diet now, and the food logging portion is that is the dial that I was talking about. Another dial, which these go so close together, I almost could just include them, but well, we'll do this one. So another dial that I like people to control is their protein, which on the dial, I end up writing the thermogenic effect. I guess I'll show you this. Thermogenic effect of food, and then the dial before was calories, which the protein, the thermogenic effect of food, TEF, that's kind of the same the same one there. So we got thermogenic effect of food and calories. So these are 2 of the 4 dials so far. If you food log, you can control those calories and you can lock them in. Whenever you start burning more calories on cardio, you're not accidentally going to eat more because you have control of that dial. The thermogenic effect of food is basically free calorie burn. The more calories that you eat that come from protein, don't take it too far. You still want a balanced diet. But if you can get roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein, then, and if you have a lot of weight to lose, it might be 1 gram per pound of like what you see yourself as. So if you want to be in the 180s, try to eat 180. I would go a little higher, try to eat 200, something like that. So let's say you're eating 180 grams of protein. That's going to be a lot of protein probably for a person of your size that wants to get to 180 pounds. And so you're going to be burning calories just by processing that protein. So that's something that's really helpful. Second, it keeps your muscle, which means you're going to be burning more calories because your basal metabolic rate stays higher. You literally burn more calories in your sleep. Third, you're going to feel more full, and therefore you're going to eat less calories. So it's just this huge like snowball of effectiveness with protein. And I know that like protein's talked about so much, it's almost become this like bro thing where it's like, oh, eat your protein. But it is extremely important and very helpful. A lot of times, if I can't figure out what's going on with the client's progress, like why they have a lack of progress, I'll see that they're eating very little protein. And so, in comparison, they might be eating 50 grams of protein a day or something. It's like, my gosh, we need more protein than that. So something that, is kind of closely revolved around that, which isn't one of the dials I'm going to talk about, but is TDEE. That is your total daily energy expenditure. And then I wrote adjustments down here, and I'll talk about that in a second. So with total daily energy expenditure, the more protein you eat, the higher your total daily energy expenditure is going to go. The more cardio you do, the higher your TDEE is going to go. The more steps you do, which we're about to talk about, the higher that is going to be. So you want that to be high, but you need to make adjustments with the dials that I was talking about as you're going along your plan. So we're going to get there a little bit more, but you could easily, if the protein's locked in, protein dial is locked in, which I should have just wrote protein there, but that's this one, the thermogenic effect of food. And the calorie dial is locked in. This one, we're just going to make steps here in a second. So we could tweak the steps a little bit. And that's those adjustments using your TDEE. So if you look up on Google, total daily energy expenditure, TDEE calculator, you'll get a rough idea of where to start. You fill out the information. You'll get a rough idea of where to start your calories. Then you start food logging. And if you have the proper protein, which is that TEF dial, and you have the proper calories, and you have your plan of cardio and your plan of weightlifting, and then we're about to talk about steps, this all really starts to come together and empowers you to really feel like you have control. I know this might sound confusing. It's going to get a lot clearer here soon. I hope you're still with me. So this next one's easy. Steps. So I'm going to write steps into this dial real quick. Steps is the other dial. So if we have control of our calories because you're food logging, and you have control of your protein, you're keeping your muscle mass because the thermogenic effect of food is high because you're eating a lot of protein, roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight or 1 gram per pound of weight that you want to be. And then comes the steps. So if you are burning a lot of calories doing cardio, I'm sure you've heard this story before. A person might say, I added a bunch of cardio and I haven't lost any weight. What's going on? A lot of times because they're accidentally eating more, which you have that dialed in. That's why I call them dials, because you dialed it in. You're not letting that dial just spin by itself. You are holding the dial. You can tweak it as you want. So that is the food logging. So you're not accidentally going to be eating more. And then your steps. If you're tracking your steps, the only tip I have on this section is don't drop the steps. That's it. So it's not necessarily getting a ton of steps. I would try to aim for 8,000, 10,000, something like that. But if you have a desk job and you feel like that's impossible, don't give this to yourself as an excuse, but try your best to get 8,000, 10,000 or more if you can. But if you just can't, if you're like, man, I'm stuck at 5,000 no matter what I do, I'm just stuck at that. That's okay. Keep 5,000, dial it in, hold that dial still. And then you could dial down the calories just a little bit and dial up the exercise just a little bit. And maybe even dial up the protein just a little bit. So you can change some other dials while this one holds steady. Because a lot of times, again, as I said previously mentioned previously, as you do more cardio, it's easy to accidentally eat more and then also to move less. So let's say you burn 300 calories on the treadmill that day and you eat an additional 150 calories. Very easy to do. I mean, look at packages on anything. Very easy to overeat by 150 calories. let's say overeat by 150 calories and you move 200 calories less in your day, you're now at a surplus of 50 calories. Even though you burned 300 calories on the treadmill, you increase your calories that you're taking in, decrease your calorie burn by 350. And that is totally possible to do. That is not me just reaching there. So by dialing in your steps, you're going to make sure to keep the steps. You're going to make sure that you're, getting enough protein and then keeping that dial still. And then you could dial back the calories a little bit. So next, let's fill in the last dial. I didn't plan on doing this dial analogy. So let's fill in the next dial. So I'm actually going to skip to tracking your weight. And then we'll talk about sleep and then recipes and meal prep and stuff, which goes right back into diet. But I thought it was important enough to have its separate thing. So you're going to be tracking your weight and making adjustments. And with the thermogenic effective food, your calories and your steps all dialed in. Then the only thing that is left is weight. And then I sometimes, I know this is kind of like cheating because there should be 5 dials here, but I like the 4 is going to be workouts. Now we already talked about workouts, but I want to specifically mention it in regards to this dial of the weight adjustment. I probably wrote that too small for you, darn it. Did I? Can you see that? It doesn't really matter. You hear it, right? Weight and workouts. So by tracking your weight, you're going to see either your weight is flat and not a whole lot is happening. Your weight is going down, success, or your weight is going up. Rarely, if a person is giving true effort to this, rarely is their weight going to be going up. If it goes up a day or two, that's different. I'm talking like a pattern of weigh-ins. I would weigh every single day. And that's why this dial is here, is you can control how often you're weighing and you can dial it back, dial it forward. I would almost always dial it forward where you're taking your weight almost every single day. That way, 2 weeks of data, you can see what is the pattern. Who cares about individual weigh-ins? What is the pattern of weigh-ins? Is it flat or is it moving down? If it's flat, then all we have to do is, and this is, again, I know it's kind of cheating because it's the same dial, but dial up the workouts a little bit, right? So maybe you increase your cardio by 10 minutes per day. If you're already doing 3 days of cardio, 45 minutes, now you're doing 55 minutes, you may as well do an hour, so 15 minutes per day. That's an extra, 45 minutes per week of cardio. So that is really going to help you. Let's say you dial up your steps from 6,000 to 6,500 every single day. That's going to help a little bit. It's not taking a drastic increase from 6,000 to 10,000 because we're tweaking a lot of dials. Let's say you take your calories and you were eating 1,550 and now you're going to eat 1,450. So you dial that back a little bit. And so you can see how this all starts to come together to give you a powerful plan that you have a lot of control of. Now, yes, it's a lot of tracking. You're tracking your weight, you're tracking your workouts, you're tracking your steps. All of this usually can be done in an app, though. I think MyFitnessPal, I just make sure to get enough steps. I don't really track them. I just, every day, non-negotiable 14,000 steps for me because I'm very active and I move a lot. But that might not, you don't need 14,000. Just pick your non-negotiable steps and, make sure to get, in fact, I should show you this. My step counter right now, I'm at 12,000. Hope that's coming through right. 928. But this step counter is really cheap. I got like a 2-pack for like $15 or something on Amazon. So I forgot where I was. If you are tracking your weight and your workouts, you're tracking your steps, you're tracking your food, which is your calories, and then with that comes protein. I know it's a lot of tracking, but it's pretty easy whenever you're looking at the MyFitnessPal app, because you're already tracking your calories and your protein in there. Your steps you're just getting every day, and then MyFitnessPal app you track your weight and you got it. Just make sure to keep a consistent workout regimen, and that's it. So we are going to move on from steps and the dial things to sleep. So sleep. The only thing that I have to really talk about sleep. Oh, yeah, and I skipped down to tracking weights. Oh, you know what? Sorry, let me back up real quick. Adjustments, calories, cardio, steps. We talked about this, but I just want to get this card out of the way. These are the dials you would adjust. So you would adjust your calories down if the pattern of weigh-ins was flat. You would adjust your cardio up, or you would adjust your steps up. So anyways, we already talked about that, but I just want to get that card out of the way. So sleep. The only 2 things, I only had 1 card, was consistency and caffeine. And caffeine is going to be a placeholder for a few things as we talk here. But consistency, I think it is so important. And I'm the worst at this. Well, not the worst. Like, of my program, this is the worst. This is the thing I have to work on the most. pick a time, doesn't matter, just pick a time and go to bed at that time every single day, including weekends. That is going to be the ideal situation. I know sometimes it might not work out, but you would want to be going to bed close to the same time. Studies show that our body gets in this rhythm, and most people can relate to that. Like, yeah, I get tired, roughly the same time. And if you go to bed at that time, you're much more likely to enter a deep stage of sleep or REM sleep. They're slightly different, I think. I'm not a sleep expert, but you're much more likely to enter that, towards the beginning of your sleep. So if you can be consistent with your time, let's say you always go to bed at 9 p.m., let's say roughly about 9:45, you're typically going to enter into your REM sleep. Whereas if you stay up till 11 or 12, you might skip a lot of that REM sleep because your body wasn't prepared anymore to go into that deep stage of sleep. That's how I understand it. But either way, consistency really helps. And that also includes consistency with waking up. Try to, even on the weekends, wake up at the same time. Try to wake up at 7 a.m. or 8. For us, we have kids. So um, it's almost impossible to sleep in past 7. So they help me get up on time. But keeping it consistent, that's really going to help. And then if you struggle, I specifically wrote caffeine, but it's going to be a placeholder. But I'm going to talk about caffeine specifically in a second. If you struggle for sleep and you struggle to get to sleep in the first place, really check your caffeine. You probably have heard it before and you're like, I know, I get it. And I'm telling you, Aaron, it doesn't affect me. I can drink a soda and go to bed. I can drink a coffee and go straight to bed. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're lying, but it still is affecting your sleep. There's no way around it. Your sleep is going to be less quality. You're going to have less deep sleep. And we need a certain amount of light sleep, and it is totally possible. Alcohol is a great example. A lot of people will actually feel like they can get to bed easier after drinking, especially if they go really hard. But they will never actually get quality sleep. They'll wake up feeling groggy, wake up feeling, exhausted. Yes, because they're hungover, but also because if I used to have a sleep tracker and I looked at this stuff very closely. I don't drink anymore, but whenever I did, I could see my sleep was all over the place, up, down, up, down. I would never really enter REM sleep, or I would enter it just for a little bit. It was really weird. And that was after like 2 drinks. I wouldn't even feel much of anything. And if I drank a lot, 5, 6, 7, or more, it was even worse. Sometimes I would never enter deep or light sleep at all. Or sorry, deep or REM sleep at all. So I promise caffeine is affecting it. Caffeine has a really long half-life, meaning if you drink 100 milligrams, I think it's like 12 hours later, it's still going to be 50 milligrams in your bloodstream. So the half-life is every time it's halved in terms of how much is in your system. So it has a really long half-life. I think it's 10 to 12 hours. And so I would highly suggest trying to take your caffeine in the morning and then not having it anymore at all. Or my favorite way by far is to only have caffeine around your workout. So right before your workout, take a pre-workout or something, and that's it. It'll juice up your workout. It'll jack you up. It will get your dopamine firing extra hard for a workout activity or something that's healthy instead of something that maybe isn't so healthy. There's so many activities that give us dopamine that aren't so good. So this is going to, almost create an addiction to the gym, to where you feel excited because you relate that dopamine spike with the gym because it's coming from, the caffeine and the gym together during that time. So that's getting into a side topic kind of. But by the time you go to bed, even if you work out at night, that's going to be hard. I don't know if I'd take pre-workout, around there, but you still could. Maybe just keep it consistent, and see how that affects you. Try kicking out caffeine or putting it into the beginning of your day and see how that affects your sleep. So your sleep is where you're going to build muscle, and believe it or not, you would think that like having less sleep would help you burn fat because I guess you're more active and you're not being as lazy and just laying there. But without proper sleep, your body doesn't function properly, and it doesn't utilize your body fat stores as well. Now, there's no way around the thermogenesis. If you are in a calorie deficit, despite your sleep, you are going to be burning fat. But you're probably going to be moving a lot more efficiently. Not efficiently, you're going to be moving more vigorously. Your cardio is probably going to be better. Your weightlifting sessions are going to be better. It's all snowballs into you having more success if you get better sleep, because your workouts are going to be better. You're going to take more steps. You're not going to be as lethargic. So get your sleep right. Take it seriously. This is something that I need to start telling myself more as well, because it is the one thing in the caffeine part is the one thing in my entire program that just isn't 100% on point. I shouldn't say I'm 100% on point everywhere, but it isn't sufficient, I don't think. So anyways, now we already talked about tracking weight. So we're going to go to the last one here, and that is recipes and meal prep. I find this is where, so a person will find a lot of success, with these, but I find they don't have long-term success without this. I think this is so key. So recipes and meal prep. Whenever you're logging your food, it gives you the ability to eat anything you want. And that is so important. If you have a craving for lasagna, you can make. I have a lasagna recipe. I love it. It's not the greatest of my recipes in terms of like macros, but if for a lasagna, it's amazing. Um, whatever you're craving, you can make it. You can have a cookie. Even if it's not like a protein cookie, you don't always have to be making a healthy cookie. At least you made it and you know exactly what's in it. And usually a homemade cookie is going to be a lot less calories than even like an Oreo or something. So it is extremely powerful whenever you're able to make your own recipes. So first, I would start with, I'm just going to call them starter recipes. So this is, and we're going to get into meal prep in a second. Obviously, recipes. Oh, there's a third card. No, nothing written on it. So I would go with starter recipes. So that's something like, you know what? Let me pull out my phone and tell you. These are really easy, small ingredient things. One pot recipes, sheet pan recipes, slow cooker recipes. It could even be something like throwing chicken into the crock pot and getting a low sugar or no sugar barbecue sauce. And then, I don't know, I'm making this up off the spot. Getting some corn tortillas and having barbecue chicken tacos. Get it like a carb balance tortilla, and you have barbecue chicken tacos. You throw some. Oh my gosh, hope that wasn't too loud for you. You throw some cabbage on there. Not cabbage. What is that? Like slaw, like fresh coleslaw, and you have a delicious barbecue chicken sandwich or taco or whatever. So let's see here. Let's do. Ooh, this is a good example. Chicken enchilada bowls. So I hope you see this. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm sorry. So chicken enchilada bowls. This makes 8 servings. Each serving is 412 calories with 44 grams of protein and only 35 grams of carbs. And this is a chicken enchilada. So like, and the reason I'm able to get these macros, and I could reduce the serving. I could increase the number of meals it makes down to where it gives me 300. It might make 10 meals and it's 300 calories or something. But I like my meals to be somewhere around 400, 500 calories. But listen to this. All you do, you cook the chicken. I like to grill it. That's separate. You take corn tortillas and I just dice them up like a stack of 20 of them. I dice them up, put them in a bowl. I put in 3 cans of enchilada sauce, 1 can of black olives, and 1 packet of seasoning mix. I mix all that up. I bake it in the oven at like 350 for 30 minutes. I never really know what the temperature is. I just make something up and do it. It kind of absorbs some of that sauce and gets a little bit soggy. I put the chicken on top, and you could mix it if you want, but I just leave it on top, and I almost have it in slices. So I'll slice it like a lasagna or something. It's delicious, super simple. It doesn't take long at all. And it's not a complicated. So that's like a starter recipe. So I would just, if you want specific recipes, leave them in the comments. I'll put something in the description or something if I see people are asking for that, or I'll respond to your comment. But there's lots of recipes I have that are starter recipes like that. A carb balanced pizza. So this is using carb balanced tortilla wraps. And it ends up being 54 grams of protein and like 25 grams of carbs if you don't count the fiber, because our body doesn't process that fiber, and then 25 grams of fat for an entire pizza, which isn't small. It's like, I don't know, bigger than my head for sure. 535 calories. That might sound a little high. You could have half pizza or whatever, but this is a very high protein, 54 grams of protein meal, and it's super simple. So that kind of is a good segue into this next point, which is simple meal prep. So what I like to encourage a person with is I want you to find a recipe that seems like a high protein recipe and try to find one that you think you're going to like. You might not like it, then you try another one. You get good at making that one recipe. And then everything else could be something like overnight oats. That could be for breakfast. Easy. That's not a hard meal prep. You just have to make it every night. And I know it's technically not prepping meals, but still, you're going to have your breakfast prepped. And then lunch could just be a sandwich, 2 slices of bread, a low-fat slice of cheese, and for me, it's like half an inch thick or an inch thick of deli meat, from the deli. I like to try to get the fresh deli meat instead of the packaged stuff, but the packaged stuff's that's okay too, especially to start. I put that in a panini maker. Boom! I got a delicious sandwich. I put some mustard on it. It's good. So meal prep doesn't have to be complicated. That is the key that I want to encourage people on. That you start with a simple meal prep and simple recipes. And actually, none of my recipes are necessarily hard. I don't consider myself like a chef by any means, but they can get a little more complicated, like the lasagna or something. Where you're layering it. But the point of this is that whatever you're craving, you are able to have that thing. I'm trying to think of something else. Stroganoff is something that one of my clients brought up, and so we have a turkey stroganoff. Just a little bit of flour. We even use the egg noodles. Normally, I don't use those egg noodles because they're not great on calories, but we even have the egg noodles in here, and it's just chicken broth and plain Greek yogurt, Worcestershire sauce. No idea how to say that. Dijon mustard and 97% lean ground turkey. I had to do that for this one because the macros just weren't working out. But this ends up being a 400 calorie meal, 43 grams of protein and 43 grams of carbs. So and 7 grams of fat. So it's very low fat. You don't have to go. There's nuance to that. Don't worry about the fat for now. But that's 50-50 carbs. And that is a pasta. That is an egg noodle, an entire package of egg noodles, stroganoff. Is it as good as a stroganoff you're going to get from the restaurant or something? No, but it's pretty close, and it has very favorable macros that fill you up.